Thanks for being here. Cool. So, well, first of all, thanks for being here again. Arrived to Taipei a couple of days ago, and it's been a great experience being here. Went through the electronics market and all of these crazy walls with CPUs and stuff. It's really cool. So I want to talk today about a couple of things, but before getting into talking about those couple of things, I want to ask how many of you know about Aragon in general. And how many of you do you know about DAOs, the concept of decentralized organizations? Okay, well, I will do a little bit of an intro. So decentralized organizations are this very interesting concept where you can use Ethereum, you can use smart contracts to create organizations that are actually encoded on-chain. And so that has many benefits. For example, they are fully programmable. Basically, you can write code, and the code is what defines the organization. If you know a little bit about how organizations like companies, nonprofits, all of these things work in the traditional world, what you have is a huge stack of paper that defines the rules on how people can interact. And so one example is when you hire someone, you want this person to have, for example, a vesting contract. So a contract that maybe after 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, whatever, rewards them with some shares in the company or tokens or whatever. And so traditionally, what you have to do is just kind of create this piece of paper that a lawyer writes for you, takes a lot of time, takes a lot of money, and then that's what kind of creates the contract between two parties, and then one of them has to gradually create more shares or give more shares to this employee. With a smart contract or with a DAO, that can be so easy as like 10 lines of code, and so you can gradually set the recipient, and this recipient will receive more tokens or shares or whatever, each Ethereum block. And so DAOs take this to a whole new level and basically enable anyone to create organizations that are on-chain, fully programmable, and that are also upgradable and get better over time. So what I wanted to talk about today is what I think DAOs can do for the whole ecosystem. Especially one use case that we are super excited about, which is fundraising. Because, you all know about ICOs, right? That everyone knows about, mostly? Okay. Well, so ICOs were a great way of funding back in the day, but I think they have some drawbacks, and so we're trying to figure out how to fix those issues with Aragon fundraising, with the app we're building for fundraising, while allowing for any project to fundraise and basically, did what a bunch of projects did back in the day, which is, for example, the reason why Ethereum is here, the reason why Aragon is here, is because of this amazing funding mechanism. So first of all, I want to talk a little bit about DeFi. So decentralized finance. Decentralized finance, it's really great, and there are some things to unpack here. So one of them is the market. The market is people here, because we all know how to use Ethereum, and so we are the users. People outside Ethereum don't necessarily need to or know how to use it, so maybe they, even if they want to use it, they just cannot. So the market is basically us. You have multiple bank account systems or similar to bank accounts, which is like wallets like Argent or apps like InstantApp that enable you to not only hold money, but also to transact and get loans and stuff like that. Then you have a bunch of financial applications like Bets on Augur, decentralized exchange on Uniswap. Then you have lending and borrowing like Compound, Kyber, stuff like that. And then for capital markets, we used to have ICOs, which is basically you have this huge list of projects that you can put money in and then participate in this capital allocation and also in the value creation, because over time, if they build something valuable, you benefit from that. Then we have stuff like Maker, Ether, which can be argued that is a store of value sometimes, depends. But then, I think the part there that I'm not quite sure about, because everything else, I think projects are taking on it very well, like Maker is taking on DAI, Uniswap and Augur are working and have kind of product market fit. But for ICOs, I think after 2017 and 2018 and all of the regulatory crackdown and all these scams, right now I think the situation is kind of terrible. Like you either have scammy Ponzi schemes, like the one that clogged Ethereum a couple of weeks ago, or you have regulated KYC crowdfunding, which is basically not ICOs at all. It's just kind of basic KYC powered fundraising, which we've had already for decades. And so I think with ICOs, like, I mean, they are amazing because like it's peer-to-peer fundraising, fully peer-to-peer fundraising, no intermediary, no need to be a venture capitalist. Anyone can just put money in. There's a lot of liquidity because you untap on this amazing liquidity pool of basically, anyone in the world that wants to put money into your project. And then also it funded years of research and development. Like the reason we are here today is because someone had the idea to do an ICO for Ethereum back in the day, and it was successful. They raised $18 million, and they were able to hire great people to build the things that we're using today. But there were a bunch of weaknesses. And so one of them is you receive all the money up front. So ICO, you get all the money up front, and then we have what happened back in the day, which is people being like, oh, I have money, and there is a Ferrari store here. I can just spend my money on buying a Ferrari. And so that's a very bad incentive alignment. Then also, because of that nature, because of the fact that you put your the funds up front, it is very difficult to recover them, almost impossible. Like once you send the transaction, it's on-chain, you have no recourse, like that's it. And then that led to like a lot of fraud. And now it's very funny what's happening, right? Because ICOs were like meant to actually disintermediate capital allocation. And we had this weird dynamic where we have exchanges that are the ones that provide liquidity, especially centralized exchanges that actually are making a lot of money by just basically receiving some kind of bribes. So like being like, hey, if you want your token listed, you gotta pay. And so that's, I think that hurts innovation a lot. And also that kind of goes against the ethos of decentralize everything, because we are being like, yeah, we decentralize everything. There is ICOs, there are tokens, anyone can create a token, but then if you want to get listed, bribe. So I don't think that's how things will work. And then that leads to like low liquidity issues. There is the problem of ICOs raising ETH. So like ETH is a very volatile asset, probably not the best asset to raise money in. Maybe you're looking for something like DAI, because at the end of the day, you use the funds to pay people. And people cannot go and buy a street food with ETH yet. But you can do that with dollars or DAI, and not with DAI, but like you can at least have something stable. And also ICOs used to attract a lot of like short-term speculators, like pump and dump kind of thing, like, oh, I got into a token sale, now I can like wait a day and dump my tokens in the market. So the question is, how can we create this, or how can we unlock this capital allocation, fully decentralized capital allocation, while keeping accountability? And our answer is better governance. So if you look at all the issues that we see here, it's mostly around basically lack of governance. Like there's a team that receives the funds and they do whatever they want, which is a kind of governance. It's called dictatorship, but not sure it works very well, looking at history. And so going back to a very, very similar use case or kind of an example of something similar that happened centuries ago. So the London Stock Exchange was a stock exchange, of course, wanting to increase capital allocation, make it more efficient, and also make people participate in value creation, very similar to ICOs in that sense. And they were systematically excluded by the nation state and the legal system. And so they were not given a place. And so the problem there is obviously, you either have something super regulated or you have something that kind of runs on the side that is not regulated. And if you do have that and it's not like regulated at all, then you have a lot of fraud. And so, there are two ways to look at this. One is like you have this nation state that regulates everything, kind of dystopian nation state that controls everything that you do and everything that you put money in, or you have the other kind of path, which is self-regulation. And self-regulation was the solution. So they said, all right, we don't want fraud to happen. We want this to exist. The nation state will not back us. They will not collaborate. So let's create like these coffee houses, these private clubs, in which we can create our own sort of like parallel legal system. We can create our own social contracts, and we can allow for this stock exchange to exist in a parallel reality to the legal system. And so, yeah, I mean, it's fascinating. I don't want to go too much into history, but it's just like very interesting how they were like experimenting with different rules inside the club to like kind of self-regulate. And I think it's like happening something very, very similar in this case. So we took that approach of self-regulation, and instead of thinking, the nation states regulate all the crowdfunding in the world, which I don't think is a good idea, that doesn't really empower innovation or freedom. We thought, we can create, using smart contracts, using DAOs, we can create the world's best token sale or kind of contribution, or how do you want to call it, crowdfunding experience. So best crowdfunding experience, both in user experience and also in accountability. So accountability is the key factor here. So basically, ICOs were great, but they lacked accountability. There were a bunch of scams. And so we said, what if instead of doing like a ICO kind of fundraising, like a dictatorship kind of fundraising, you put a DAO in there. And this DAO is the one that represents token holders, and this DAO balances power out from the team that is going to build the project. And so how it works, it's very, very simple. So basically, when you want to create a DAO, because at the end of the day, you're creating a DAO with this fundraising app. So I will go into that later, but Aragon DAOs are very modular. So they have like multiple apps, and this fundraising app is just one of them. So you install your app into your DAO, or you just create a new DAO with this fundraising template, and you tweak a little bit the parameters here and there, and basically you have a fundraising going on. And so there are some parameters here that I want to explain. So one of them, for example, is there's like a pre-sale, and then after the pre-sale, there is the actual kind of crowdfunding. And so the pre-sale is like a typical kind of pre-sale that we would be used to. So like your target goal, the price, in this case per DAI, because DAI, as I said before, I think DAI is a way better token for actually like fundraising. Then the funding period, so like how much time do you want the token sale to last, this pre-sale. And then you have a couple parameters there, which are how much of that is going directly to the project and how much of that is just going to the DAO. And then after that, what you have is a couple interesting things too, which is you can also set vesting for your participants. So one of the problems that we had before is pump and dumpers, right? So like they come in, they buy, price pumps, they sell, right? And you don't want to have those kind of people in your community. You want to have people that actually believe in your project. And so with vesting, you can say, right, if you're going to get in, but you are going to have to like wait a year until you are able to sell your tokens again, right? And so that way you actually incentivize long-term support and not short-term speculation. And then there are basically different pools, and this is the core difference with like traditional methods of fundraising, is that there is no team doing the fundraising. The DAO is doing the fundraising. So this set of smart contracts that represents the DAO is the one that is going to receive the money and is the one that is actually doing the fundraising. So there are two different pools, the reserve and the discretionary. So basically you can think of it the same way. The reserve is the DAO. The reserve is where all the funds go, and that one is controlled by token holders. That one is community governed by your community, your participants in your sale. And then there is a discretionary pool. And the discretionary is the team's pool, is what the team uses to actually build the project. So let's say, for example, you want to build another blockchain, because that's cool, right? So you start a fundraise, and then with this fundraise, you raise a lot of money that goes into the reserve, and then gradually you will have what's called a tap rate, and this tap rate basically is like money that is being streamed at you. So like every month you can pay salaries, you can hire people, and a lot of that. But the reserve pool can at any time come together, take a governance decision, and vote that maybe you are not doing well. They don't want you to continue, and they can stop funding there. So that's the accountability kind of firewall that separates these two pools. So the cool thing about here as well is we use this thing called bonding curves. And so bonding curves are, well, if you're familiar with like Uniswap or any kind of like decentralized exchange, it's similar in the sense that they give you liquidity without the need of being listed in a centralized exchange. So basically what you see here in this curve, it's a bunch of different points there. So for example, there's that point there, like in the near the 2000 and the 100 in the kind of bottom half. And so, for example, if you want to buy now, that will be the price that you get, basically. And so you see also like in the kind of numbers in the top, which are way easier to look at. So like you have stuff like the price, market cap, trading volume, token supply, what's in the reserve pool, which is also important, and the monthly allowance, which is basically what the team can get every month to pay salaries and develop the project. And so the thing that I want to talk about more here is the reserves part. So unlike ICOs, in a traditional sense, which can have kind of weird edge cases, for example, in the case of Aragon, Aragon holds around, I think right now, $45 million in their reserves, but the market cap of ANT is like 30, which doesn't make any sense. Like that's basically the market is like saying, you guys are gonna fuck it up and you are gonna like spend $50 million on Lambos or something and somehow you lose money. In a rational world, what would happen is that the reserves are actually somehow linked to the market cap, to the market value of a project. And so with bonding curves, that actually happens. And that's one of the very, very, very cool things about Aragon fundraising is that instead of just sending money, and then after the sale is gone, the money is basically eaten by speculators. Because if you think about it, when you do a token sale, you raise like, let's say $10 million. Those $10 million is the team who can have access to it and use it to develop the project. But once that token sale is done and you don't raise any more money, then it's all market. And so basically that means that in the market, people who are making profit, like, from that profit, nothing really goes back to the project. And here the cool thing is each time you buy, you're not buying to the team, you're buying to this bonding curve. And this bonding curve is linked to the reserve. And so basically what this means is that when you put money in, when you buy a token, you are effectively putting money into the reserve for the team to use it later. And when you sell to the bonding curve, what you're doing is you're taking money out of the reserves. So this is also very cool for accountability because as token holder, you know that you are not ever going to have just like empty hands. Because if you buy today and you want to sell tomorrow, you are at least going to sell at a good price that is like a part of the reserve. So you always have that kind of reserve to back it up. And then we're building this very cool UI as well to find cool projects in the. It is not only for the crypto space, although I think a lot of crypto projects will use it, but also in general for like anyone who wants to create a fundraise or a crowdfunding campaign. Like I think one of the cool things about this kind of DAOs is that you can create them for like $3, and then you can use them for something super, super small, and then kind of ditch them. Like there is no this huge sort of process where you have to create legal documents and hire lawyers and notarize documents and all of that stuff, right? So basically, if you wanted to do this kind of fundraise in the traditional world with like legal documents, you'll probably need like months and like, thousands of dollars in lawyers. With this, you can literally do it in like 2 clicks. So I think we're going to see a bunch of like projects that are not that like big in terms of like you can really fundraise for your birthday party. You can say I want to fundraise for this, and you can literally do it. So we're building this kind of discovery platform, and so the way it's going to work when you want to participate in a Aragon fundraising project is you're going to be able to go here, purchase tokens with DAI or ANT, which are the two like collateral types that Aragon fundraising works with right now. And then if there's an investing, you wait. If not, you can just claim your tokens. And then each time, whatever time period you want, you will have to vote and participate in the governance to either let the team continue or no, or stop them if they are not delivering on their promises. And so this is very cool as well, because I think one very, very important part of it is you just like don't put the money and forget about it. You put the money and then you also have a say. You can actually vote on how the future of this project is going to be. And then if you want to sell tokens back to the project because you feel that you have already participated in the value creation and you made some money or something, then you can just sell back to the bonding curve. And the cool thing, again, is like it is not going to go to zero because you can basically always redeem part of the reserve pool funds. So that's very cool. And I think that's a very needed protection for participants in a token sale. So to wrap up here, this is like kind of some attributes that I believe are important for a successful fundraising. That's Aragon fundraising, and that's like ICO models. Also, Aragon fundraising is a little bit inspired on a couple of things. One is a model called API, but Luke Duncan from our team, but also Vitalik's ICO idea, which is basically decentralized autonomous ICOs. So it's very similar to what we're building here. And so funds are milestone-based as opposed to just like lump sum in ICOs. Fund recovery is very easy for token holders. ICOs is very hard or impossible. Transparency is built in. Like one cool thing about Aragon fundraising is, I don't know if you'll see, but there is like a bunch of like these apps in the sidebar here. One of them is the finance app. The other one is the voting app. As I said, like Aragon is a modular kind of framework for creating DAOs, so you can have multiple apps and combine them. And if you go to the finance app, you are gonna automatically see how the team is spending their money, which I think is super cool. It's like built-in transparency. Right now for ICOs, for example, Aragon, we have transparency.aragon.org, this website that we like manually document all of our expenses, but no one does that in the crypto ecosystem. We think transparency is important, but I think it should be built in. Accountability, of course, token holders can vote. Liquidity is guaranteed by this bonding curve, so you're not going to have the issue where liquidity just goes to zero and you are not able to sell your tokens, and that's never going to happen. And then the treasury asset for ICOs used to be ETH, which is very bad idea, very volatile. DAI is stable. I think DAI is the way to go. And then in terms of incentives, ICOs used to attract a lot of like short-term speculators, and I think Aragon fundraising can actually incentivize long-term view, which I think is so important for the ecosystem. So to wrap up, like this is kind of the history repeating itself. So coffee houses in the London Stock Exchange gave us this self-regulated local financial markets, but of course that didn't scale. You cannot have like a global coffee house or club or something with that kind of bond and trust. ICOs gave us a lot of trust minification because we don't need to trust each other. We don't need to like be in the same coffee house to trust each other. But at the same time, they had a lot of problems with accountability. And I think Aragon fundraising combines both to actually deliver something that is good for the ecosystem. And so this is decentralized governance. This is what we are building at Aragon. Thank you. We are hiring, so we're hiring a bunch of positions, especially developers, front-end developers, and general engineers that are passionate about decentralized governance and taking this to the masses, so they can build, the next generation of organizations in the world, and we can actually build something that enables people to be part of value creation. I think that's one of the coolest things about cryptocurrencies. Even stuff like Bitcoin, back in the day, if you wanted to participate in value creation, you would have to be a venture capitalist and you would have to have amazing network in Stanford or Palo Alto or something to get access to Apple Series A. Now with these cryptocurrencies, we actually can give this same capability to everyone in the world. So I think it's so important to work on these fundraising mechanisms, reduce scams, but also keep that kind of value add that we are seeing. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions? Yes.
And there's one more thing. We're doing a party, the Aragon Chain Party, because we're also building a blockchain for real. And so, here are the details. 30 cafe. It's going to be from 5:30 to 8. So just drop by and say hi. Thanks.
OK， 那我们今天晚上呢，我们有 Aracom 有特别准备了一个活动，如果大家有兴趣要去参加的话呢，这个活动是从5点到8点，5点半到8点，然后就在我们这附近一个叫做30 Cafe 的，它的地址是在民权路21-1号，在大坪林捷运站附近。好的，那目前请问一下，在场有没有人有任何的疑问？对于我们刚刚分享过的 session，Do we have any questions from the audience about the session we just shared? Raise your hand if you have any questions. Anyone? Okay. Thank you very much for your sharing. Thank you. 让我们再次掌声谢谢我们的分享者。